It's the Mr. Marty Show.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Mr. Marty Show. The Mr. Marty Show. Yeah, you got friends. Friends you didn't know who are part of the Mr. Marty Show. Oh, the Mr. Marty Show. So pull up a chair. We got so much to share. Gonna fill you with joy, fill you with share. Lots of action on the Mr. Marty Show. On the Mr. Marty Show. The Mr. Marty Show. Come join us on the Mr. Marty Show. On the Mr. Marty Show. The Mr. Marty Show. Come join us on the Mr. Marty Show. Show. Fine. Freedom, such a beautiful word. Wonder if you heard all about freedom. Freedom comes with a fee to get liberty. Freedom, such a funny thing. We think we are free. Next moment we lose it. Freedom, the enemy of those who fear liberty. We act like it's free, and freedom is free. Free for the taking. We can only have liberty with freedom. From wanting to be free. Freedom, from fear of never being free. Freedom, to pray our way openly. Freedom, freedom. Look around the world today. such a precious thing to live in liberty, such a precious dream for those who can only dream of freedom, wanting to be free, freedom from fear of never being free, freedom to pray our way openly, freedom, freedom. There are those who say it cannot go away, but they are lying. They don't want to see freedom from wanting to be free, freedom from fear of never being free, freedom to pray our way openly, freedom, freedom, praying for freedom, freedom, telling you freedom, freedom, we need freedom, freedom.
Hello, this is Polly Chase with artwork by Martin McCormack. You'll recognize this painting titled Centurions from the newsletter. It is acrylic on canvas and measures 20 by 24. The vibrancy of this piece comes from Marty's use of two complementary colors, red and green, and a saturated cool blue sky that balances the red or implied heat of the scene. You'll notice that Marty applies his acrylics in a manner that produces a realistic image with a pointillist texture and color play. By placing those complementary colors nearly one on top of the other, he can achieve deep shadow areas with dazzling effect. Using his own photograph as a reference, Marty preserves the open, arid pathways that invite the viewer to venture among the prickly cacti. You can take a longer look at this piece and see more of Marty's artwork at martinmccormack.com.
This life I am living, a rough and ragged road.
Hi, Mr. Marty fans. Maud Gilmore here, standing straight up and as well as I guess can be expected after so long in the hospital. We're talking about Abraham Lincoln today, and what a man that I would have liked to have known. When I think of Abraham Lincoln, I think of a portrait that I saw of him at a fireplace with candlelight and him reading a book and hearing about how he walked to get a book back that had been lent to him by a neighbor. Well, I find out that he was not as assiduous reader as so many people thought he was. In fact, his law partner said he didn't read so much as he thought. Now, you can read and you can think, and those thoughts that you ponder can leave an impression with you on your stature, on how you hold yourself, what you think of yourself, what you think of others. Well, so when I think of Abraham Lincoln, I still think that he read a lot. He had to. He was smart. But then he was going through so much too. Can you imagine having the weight of a whole nation on your shoulders? Having lost 2 sons? Having a wife who was very fragile because of having lost those sons? And you think, well, what What would he have to write about that is merry and nice? Well, I came across this book. It's the collected poems of Abraham Lincoln. And he was a pretty good writer. He did, as we know from the Gettysburg Address, how he used words to sway a people, how he used words that were smart words. He didn't talk down to the people. He had empathy. He had sympathy for them. But when I came across this book, I found that some of his prose was very heart-endearing. How he found joy in children, having lost two of his own. In 1858, President Lincoln, or not yet President Lincoln, stopped in Winchester, Illinois on his campaign against Douglas. He stayed at the Haggard Hotel. It was a place that he would feel good to stay at, and Mr. Haggard had two young daughters, probably very, very young, and they asked him if he would sign their autograph books. Well, that's what girls did. They had little autograph books, and famous people they would ask to please sign them. So, to Rosa Haggard, and this was on September 28, 1858. You were young, and I am older. You are hopeful. I am not. Enjoy life ere it grow older. Pluck the roses ere they rot. Teach your bow to heed the lay, that sunshine soon is lost in shade, that news is good as any day. To take thee, Rosa, ere she fade. I thought that was beautiful. It was like he was looking at a rose that was growing, and he took those words and put something into your heart that you could relate to. Well, I also found some humor in what he wrote. Now, he had that duty to send troops different places for the Civil War. And I'm sure it was really weighing on his shoulders that generally he would not have made light of it. This was on July 19th, 1863, and it's called General Lee's Invasion of the North. So the president, in high spirits, sits down at his desk and in bold writing wrote, "Me and Jeff's Confederacy went forth to sack Philadelphia. The Yankees, they got arter us and gin us patriot hell, and we skedaddled back again, and we never did catch Philadelphia." I thought that was a light spirit inside of the president in a very harsh time. Well, that only made me feel better about Lincoln, that he was a human being, that he was a man who had many sides, trying to hold everything else together. He could find some humor, some poetic justice for this world. This is Ma Gilmore, leaving you kind of on a sad note, but hopefully you know something more about the president, about why we should honor this man who took on the world, and honor him with a day of his own. Ma Gilmore says, peace.
And now, 30 seconds of cue.
How I love the sound of this rain. While the majority of Mr. Marty fans are experiencing the icy cold and snow of winter, here in Australia it is the middle of summer. We have been suffering high temperatures and very dry weather in this area where I live in Scone, New South Wales. So we are overjoyed to receive this rain. Unfortunately, the reverse has been happening in other parts of the state. Disastrous floods have caused people to lose their homes and start again. They question whether to stay in the same area or move to another district. The rain ceased for a while during this filming, long enough for Beady, the one-eyed cockatoo, to return for a feed after a few days' absence. Hello, Beady. Where have you been while it's been raining? Now it's stopped for a while. You've come back for a feed. I can feel some raindrops on me. We're going to have another rainfall. Isn't that wonderful? It'll cool the air down a bit. The rain started again quite heavily just as he finished his meal. And I was able to enjoy the downpour from inside the house.
Hey, want to show your support of Martin's artist endeavors? Buy Me a Coffee is an online site that makes supporting Marty easy. In just a few taps, you can make a payment of any amount and no account is needed. You can also decide to become an ongoing supporter. Go to martinmccormack.com and click on the words Support Martin. Let's help Martin keep it all caffeinated.
Hello, I am Doug Kamholtz. My wife Sheila Walk and I are here for yet another celebration of our beloved Abraham Lincoln.
Here is Springfield's Amtrak station, which has a historic connection to Abraham Lincoln.
Lincoln's funeral train arrived here at this spot after a trip of 1,600 miles over 13 days. Some 7 million people left their homes to go out and witness the funeral train passing by. A quarter of all the people who lived in the United States in 1865. It is said that for some of those people, to see the funeral locomotive go by was a way for them to come to peace with the grief for their own lost loved ones killed in the recent Civil War, loved ones whose remains would never come home. The great American poet Walt Whitman had only a nodding acquaintance with Lincoln, as the president often rode his horse past Whitman's house in Washington. Whitman, though, had a great love for this man. Whitman's sadness at the April death of Lincoln is expressed in a poem that speaks of the train that brought his murdered body to this station in this city where his soul was to repose forever. Sheila will now read selected verses of that work.
When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed, by Walt Whitman. When lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed, and the great star early drooped in the western sky in the night, I mourned, and yet shall mourn, with the ever-returning spring. Ever-returning spring, Trinity, sure to me you bring lilac, blooming perennial, drooping star in the west, and thought of him I love. Over the breast of the spring, the land, amid cities, amid lanes, and through old woods where lately the violets peeped from the ground, spotting gray debris. Amid the grass in the fields each side of the lanes, passing the endless grass, passing the yellow-speared wheat, every grain from its shroud in the dark brown fields uprisen, passing the apple tree blows of white and pink in the orchards, carrying a corpse to where it shall rest in the grave. Night and day journeys a coffin. Coffin that passes through lanes and streets, through day and night with the great cloud darkening the land, with the pomp of the in-looped flags, with the cities draped in black, with the show of the states themselves as of crepe-veiled women standing, with processions long and winding and the flambeaux of the night, with the countless torches lit, with the silent sea of faces and the unbared heads, with the waiting depot, the arriving coffin, and the somber faces, with dirges through the night, with the thousand voices rising strong and solemn, with all the mournful voices of the dirges poured around the coffin, the dim-lit churches, and the shuddering organs where amid these you journey with the tolling tolling bells' perpetual clang. Here, coffin that slowly passes, I give you my sprig of lilac.
For several years, I worked as a volunteer for the National Park Service. They operate the historic site of Lincoln's home, a few blocks over my left shoulder. We would ride the Amtrak train from here to Chicago and back, talking to passengers about the history and the present of our trip, telling them what was out the window of the train and what was along the tracks. Coming from Chicago, I set up in the big windowed observation car. I had my microphone in front of me, a table with a clutch of artifacts. Because we traveled the same rail bed over this same route as Lincoln's funeral train, I read aloud the Whitman verses you have just heard. One day, facing me from the booth beyond mine was a young African American, a man about 30, wearing a fine Chicago Bulls cap and jacket. Like many of his age, he quickly focused not on my narration, but on his handheld device. When it came time for the Whitman verses, I opened my notebook, took my microphone in hand, and looked down at the page to read. When I finished, I looked up to see the man was crying and telling me how powerful those words were. Here is Sheila to repeat a few of them for you.
When lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed, I mourned, and yet shall mourn with ever-returning spring. Amid cities and through old woods, amid the grass and the fields with countless torches lit, with the waiting depot, the arriving coffin, and the somber faces. Night and day journeys a coffin, carrying a corpse to where it shall rest in the grave. Here, coffin that slowly passes, I give you my sprig of lilac.
Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud? Like a swift fleeting meteor, a fast flying cloud, a flash of the lightning, a break of the wave, he passes from life to his rest in the grave. The leaves of the oak and the willow shall fade, be scattered around, and together be laid. And the young and the old, the low and the high, shall moulder to dust, and together shall lie. Yea, hope and despondency, pleasure and pain, are mingled together in sunshine and rain. And the smile and the tear, the song and the dirge, still follow each other like surge upon surge. 'Tis the wink of an eye, 'tis the draught of a breath, from the blossom of health to the paleness of death, from the gilded saloon to the bier and the shroud. Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud?
Hey everybody, welcome to In the Studio. Right now I've got a little bit of a sunset happening, the winter sun. I'm going to be losing my light, but still there's always a good opportunity to try different views and light patterns to work with scratch art. At least that's what I feel. So we're going to continue along with my Cheyenne teepee winter scene. I want to just start working on adding more trees in. So I'm kind of carefully going along here, just dropping in more of the trees. Somewhere in here is going to be my light perspective, the moonlight. And even though, you know, it's not 100% yet, but see, I'm slowly filling it in. Something kind of cool about working in this dying light. It's a softer light, first of all. But look at how well, when I cut along into the emulsion, how well that all starts coming out. Now, I was thinking mountains, but you know, I'm kind of digging right now, really enjoying this unique kind of thing with the cottonwoods and the teepees. That real winter kind of scene that you would see if you were living then. Hunker down to camp. They weren't migrating after buffalo at this time of season. It's all about just wintering, hoping that enough stores would be put in. So I'm going to speed up the film a little bit so we can keep moving and you can get a faster perspective. So here we are, and you can kind of get a great idea in this light why it's important to work with different times of the day. But I'm getting this really neat look, right? Especially from here. And I have to make a decision as I go along here. Do I want to add a little more detail into these tents? I do, you know, give them a sense of glow, let them stand out a little bit with the cottonwoods, and then we'll have I think maybe not even a moon. Maybe I'm just going to explode it into starlight. I'm not sure, but this is off to a really cool looking start. Got to get a little more snow cover in the front, and I'm excited about it. It's going to be a neat piece. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching the show.
Why don't you start over again so I have some editing time? Take 2.
Thanks for watching the show. Civil War, and he stopped slavery, and he declared Thanksgiving a national holiday. Yes, we thank you for being our Thanks for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight, and it's all dedicated about Abe Lincoln. This took 3 tries.
Bye.